I was 30 years old when my father slapped me so hard my head hit the front door. The sound echoed through the hallway before I even felt the pain. Then he grabbed 2 black garbage bags, shoved everything he thought belonged to me inside them, and threw them onto the front porch. "You wanted to be independent," Charlie Roberts said, pointing toward the street. "Now go prove it." My younger brother, Finn, leaned against the kitchen counter with a beer in his hand. He laughed. Not nervously. Not because he didn't know what to do. He laughed because he genuinely enjoyed watching me become homeless. "You've always been dramatic, Millie," he said. "Dad's doing you a favor." I looked at my mother. She stood only a few feet away. Arms crossed. Eyes fixed on the floor. She didn't stop him. She didn't tell him to calm down. She didn't even ask if I was okay. Instead, she sighed. "Maybe this is what you needed." That hurt far more than the slap. Because it confirmed something I had spent years trying not to believe. My mother wasn't trapped. She had chosen her side a long time ago. Charlie opened the front door. "Get out." I didn't move. Not because I wanted to stay. Because after 30 years, I couldn't believe my own father was throwing me away like old furniture. He stepped closer. "If I have to ask twice." His voice was calm. Which somehow made it worse. I picked up one of the garbage bags. Then the other. Everything I owned. Compressed into 2 plastic bags sitting on the porch where I'd learned to ride a bike. Where I'd celebrated birthdays. Where I'd waited every afternoon for my dad to come home from work, still believing he loved me the same way he loved Finn. I reached the driveway. Behind me, Charlie shouted one last sentence. "The day you need this family." He smiled. "Don't bother coming back." The front door slammed shut. I stood there for several seconds. One neighbor quietly pulled her curtains closed. Another pretended not to look. Nobody said a word. Humiliation has a strange way of making an entire street suddenly become silent. I loaded the bags into my car. Not because I had somewhere to go. Because I refused to let them watch me cry. People always ask what happened that day. They assume there was one huge argument. One explosive secret. One unforgivable mistake. There wasn't. The truth is far simpler. And much uglier. Charlie Roberts had spent my entire life preparing for that moment. The slap was only the final chapter. It started 23 years earlier. The day Finn was born. From that day on, everything became a competition I was never allowed to win. If I brought home straight A's, Dad asked why I wasn't taking advanced classes. If Finn barely passed math, we celebrated with pizza. When I earned a scholarship to college, Dad called it luck. When Finn dropped out after one semester, Dad said college wasn't for everyone. Every excuse had 2 versions. One for his son. Another for me. "You expect too much. You should understand your brother. Family comes first." I heard those words so often. They almost sounded normal. Almost. The funny thing is, I actually believed if I worked hard enough, eventually he'd see me. So I kept trying. Harder grades. Longer hours. Better jobs. Nothing changed. Finn could destroy something. I'd be expected to fix it. Finn forgot Mom's birthday. Dad asked me why I hadn't reminded him. Finn borrowed money. Dad asked me to help him pay it back because you're the responsible one. Being responsible was never a compliment in our house. It was a punishment. By 28, I had finally built a career I was proud of. I worked for Sentinel Digital Forensics, a private forensic technology company in uptown Charlotte specializing in video evidence. Most people imagined my job looked like television crime shows. It didn't. Nobody handed me a dramatic confession. Nobody solved murders in 30 minutes. My work was quieter. Harder. Frame by frame. Restoring damaged surveillance footage. Authenticating recordings. Recovering deleted files. Helping investigators determine whether videos had been altered. Every image mattered. Every second mattered. Because one missing frame could change someone's entire future. I loved that responsibility. Not because it made me feel important. Because evidence doesn't care who you are. Evidence has no favorite child. It tells the truth. Whether people like it or not. Marcus Hale used to remind me of that every Monday morning. He'd worked homicide for over 20 years before retiring and joining Sentinel as a forensic consultant. He wasn't loud. Didn't give motivational speeches. Didn't believe in fake optimism. His advice usually came in one sentence. If facts are on your side. He'd shrug. You don't need louder people. That sentence stayed with me. More than I realized. Charlie hated my job. Not because of the hours. Not because of the salary. Because he couldn't control it. You stare at security cameras all day. He laughed whenever relatives asked what I did. You know who has real jobs. Then he'd point toward Finn. My son works with people. Finn had changed careers 5 times in 6 years. Sales. Real estate. Fitness coaching. Luxury cars. Crypto investing. Now he was building a hospitality brand. Nobody actually knew what that meant. Least of all Finn. But Dad admired him anyway. Confidence mattered more than results. At least. If you were Finn. 3 days before he threw me out. I made what should have been a harmless mistake. At least. That's what I thought. I corrected Charlie. In front of Finn. Nothing dramatic. Nothing disrespectful. He was telling relatives he had personally helped Finn secure a business partnership worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. The problem? I knew the truth. Because I'd helped Finn organize the paperwork after he'd nearly missed every deadline. Dad. I said carefully. It wasn't really your negotiation. Finn's smile disappeared. Charlie looked at me. What did you say? I just meant. Finn already had the agreement. I only helped finish the documents. Charlie stepped closer. You embarrassed your brother. I corrected the story. You embarrassed this family. Finn folded his arms. You always have to prove you're smarter than everyone. I wanted to answer. But something stopped me. Marcus' voice echoed in my head. If facts are on your side. You don't need louder people. So I stayed quiet. I didn't realize then. That Charlie had already decided how he was going to punish me. And 3 days later. His hand met my face. While Finn smiled. Neither of them had any idea. That 72 hours after throwing me out. Charlie Roberts would be standing outside my apartment. Begging the daughter he had just discarded to save the son he had always chosen. I barely slept that first night. Not because the apartment was uncomfortable. Because every time I closed my eyes. I heard the slap again. The sound. The laughter. The front door closing behind me. It replayed over and over until sunrise. The next morning, my phone buzzed. For one ridiculous second. I thought Dad had called to apologize. Instead, it was a text from Diane. Your father is still very upset. You should apologize before this gets worse. I stared at the screen. Apologize? For getting slapped? For being thrown out? For correcting a lie? I deleted the message without replying. 10 minutes later. Another notification. This time. Finn. He had uploaded a photo standing in the family kitchen, holding a cup of coffee. My favorite mug. The caption read, "Finally, some peace around here." Hundreds of likes. Relatives commenting. Friends laughing. One aunt even wrote, "The family feels complete again." I locked my phone. Not because I was angry anymore. Because I finally understood something. They weren't trying to hurt me. They truly believed they had done the right thing. Monday morning. I walked into Sentinel Digital Forensics like nothing had happened. Nobody there knew I had become homeless 48 hours earlier. I wanted to keep it that way. Evidence didn't care about broken families. Cases still had deadlines. Marcus Hale noticed me before I even reached my desk. "You look exhausted." "I've had better weekends." He nodded once. Didn't ask questions. Didn't offer sympathy. Instead, he placed a case folder on my desk. Charlotte Police requested priority processing. I opened it. Violent assault. Commercial parking lot. Victim hospitalized. Suspect fled before officers arrived. Several surveillance cameras had captured the incident. But heavy rain and damaged storage sectors had corrupted most of the footage. Marcus crossed his arms. "You'll probably hate this one." "Why?" "Half the files are missing." I almost smiled. Then it's my kind of case. For the first time since leaving home, I felt like myself again. Recovering damaged video isn't magic. It takes patience. Every camera records differently. Every storage system fails differently. Sometimes, you recover hours of useless footage before finding a single frame that matters. By noon, I had reconstructed camera 1. Nothing useful. Camera 2. Mostly headlights. Camera 3. The victim entering the parking lot. Still no suspect. I continued. Hour after hour. Frame by frame. By late afternoon, camera 5 finally loaded. The timestamp flickered. Rain blurred almost everything. A man stumbled across the parking lot. The victim stepped between him and a pickup truck. Even without audio, their body language made the argument obvious. The victim pointed toward the driver's seat, probably trying to stop him from driving. The other man shoved him. The victim stood his ground. Then, one punch. A second. A third. The victim collapsed. The attacker kicked him once, looked around, and ran. The image froze. Corrupted again. I leaned closer. Come on. Another reconstruction cycle. More missing sectors. The software rebuilt several additional frames. Enough to reveal the attacker's jacket. Dark blue. Expensive. A silver watch. Still no face. Marcus stopped behind me. Anything? Not yet. You'll get him. I always do. He gave a small nod. I know. Most people think technology solves everything instantly. It doesn't. Sometimes the answer is hidden inside one damaged frame. One reflection. One shadow. One license plate. One face. I enhanced the image again. Adjusted contrast. Reduced motion blur. Recovered missing pixels. The attacker turned his head. For less than half a second. The software sharpened the frame. I stopped breathing. No. Marcus frowned. What? I zoomed in. Again. 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 There was no mistake. No possibility of coincidence. I knew that face. I had spent my entire childhood looking across the dinner table at it. Millie? Marcus's voice sounded distant. I whispered before I even realized I was speaking. That's my brother. The room fell silent. Marcus looked at the monitor. Then back at me. You're sure? I've never been more sure of anything. Finn Roberts. Wearing the exact leather jacket Dad had bought him for Christmas. The same silver watch he'd shown off at dinner 2 weeks earlier. The same truck parked in the background. Every detail fit. Marcus didn't touch the keyboard. Didn't look at the file. He looked only at me. Can someone else finish this case? I kept staring at the frozen frame. Finn's fist. The victim on the ground. Rain covering the parking lot. Then I slowly shook my head. No. Marcus waited. If I walk away now, I become exactly the kind of person my father always wanted me to be. He remained silent. I saved the recovered footage. Locked the evidence file. Documented every enhancement step. Every reconstructed frame. Every recovered second. Because if this case went to court, everything would be questioned. Including me. I had no idea. Someone else had already discovered who was handling the evidence. And less than 24 hours later, Charlie Roberts would knock on my apartment door for the first time since throwing me into the street. He wouldn't come to apologize. He would come for the video. The knock came at exactly 8:12 the next morning. 3 slow knocks. Confident. Almost impatient. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I looked through the peephole, my stomach tightened. Charlie Roberts. For a brief second, I thought maybe, just maybe, he had finally realized what he'd done. Maybe he had come to apologize. Maybe he had spent 3 sleepless nights regretting the slap. Maybe my father had remembered he had a daughter. I unlocked the door. Charlie didn't even say hello. We need to talk. Not can I come in? Not how are you? Not I'm sorry. Just. We need to talk. I stayed in the doorway. I don't think we do. His eyes scanned the apartment behind me. Small living room. Second-hand furniture. 2 unopened garbage bags still sitting against the wall. He noticed them. His expression didn't change. No guilt. No shame. Nothing. So. He said. You found somewhere. I did. Good. Silence. Then he got straight to the point. I heard you're handling Finn's case. There it was. Not concern. Not reconciliation. Business. I folded my arms. Who told you? That doesn't matter. It matters to me. He ignored the question. You're going to remove those recordings. I actually laughed. Not because it was funny. Because I couldn't believe he thought it was that simple. You think I can just erase evidence? I know you can. No. I've seen what you do. You've mocked what I do for years. His jaw tightened. This isn't the time for attitude. No. I replied quietly. This is the first time in my life it's exactly the time. For the first time since arriving. Charlie looked uncomfortable. Only for a second. Then the mask returned. Your brother made a mistake. He nearly killed someone. It was a fight. It became aggravated assault the moment he kept hitting him after he was unconscious. Charlie stepped closer. You weren't there. I watched the video. You watched pieces of a video. I watched enough. He exhaled heavily. You know how these things work. I do. People exaggerate. I reconstruct evidence. They provoke. I preserve facts. His voice hardened. He's your brother. And he's your favorite. Charlie didn't answer. Because he couldn't. We both knew it was true. Instead, he changed tactics. If those recordings reach the prosecutor, they will. Finn's future is over. I looked him straight in the eyes. My future ended on your front porch 3 days ago. For the first time. Charlie looked away. Not out of remorse. Out of frustration. He hated losing control of conversations. Especially with me. He lowered his voice. I shouldn't have hit you. Those words almost sounded like an apology. Almost. Then he ruined them. But you pushed me. There it was. The excuse. The condition. The refusal to accept responsibility. I smiled sadly. Thank you. He frowned. For what? For reminding me you haven't changed. Before he could answer, another voice came from the hallway. Millie. Diane. She walked toward us carrying her purse as though this were an ordinary family visit. The moment she reached the door, she tried to hug me. I stepped back. Her arms froze in the air. I've been worried sick. No. I answered calmly. You've been worried about Finn. She looked offended. How can you say that? Because neither of you came here until you found out whose desk that case landed on. Silence. Charlie sighed dramatically. This isn't helping. Diane took a different approach. You know your brother isn't a violent person. I watched him kick a man who couldn't even stand. He was scared. So was the victim. He panicked. So he ran. She shook her head desperately. If this goes to court, it will. Our family will be destroyed. I couldn't stop myself. Our family ended when Dad threw me into the street. Charlie slammed his hand against the apartment wall. Enough. Several neighbors opened their doors. He noticed immediately. Lowered his voice. Straightened his shirt. Even angry. He cared about appearances. Always appearances. He leaned closer so only I could hear. Listen carefully. If you help your brother, I'll let you come home. For a second, I genuinely wondered if he heard himself. You think that's what I want? You've got nowhere else. I have peace. You have a cheap apartment. I have dignity. His expression darkened. I can make one phone call. I tilted my head. To who? The people above you. You think they'll destroy your career because I followed forensic protocol? I think they'll listen. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. You still believe power works the same everywhere. He frowned. What does that mean? It means my reports don't belong to me. They're logged. Every access. Every edit. Every deleted frame. If 1 second disappears, there'll be a record. Charlie's confidence cracked. Just slightly. You could still refuse the case. I already accepted it. You can change your mind. No. Diane grabbed my wrist. Her eyes filled with tears. Real tears this time. Please. Don't do this. I gently pulled my hand away. I'm not doing anything. Your son did. Charlie's breathing became heavier. He stared at me for several long seconds. Then nodded once. Fine. If that's how you want to play this. He turned toward the elevator. This isn't over. I know. It'll be the biggest mistake of your life. No. I answered. The biggest mistake of my life was believing you'd eventually love me. Neither of them spoke again. The elevator doors closed. The hallway finally became quiet. I thought it was over. I was wrong. Less than an hour later, Marcus walked into my office carrying a sealed envelope. Special delivery. I opened it. The sender's name made my pulse quicken. Office of Assistant District Attorney Natalia Brown. Inside was a formal request. Every original recording. Every recovered frame. Every enhancement log. Nothing omitted. Nothing altered. At the bottom, one handwritten sentence. Ms. Roberts, after reviewing preliminary evidence, this case may involve additional felony charges. Preserve everything. I read that sentence twice. Because if Natalia Brown was already talking about additional felony charges, it meant someone had discovered something in the footage that even I hadn't seen yet. I spent the next 4 hours watching the same 38 seconds. Again. And again. Every punch. Every movement. Every reflection. Every shadow. When prosecutors ask for everything, they usually aren't interested only in what happened. They're interested in what everyone else missed. So I started over. From the first frame. Not looking at Finn. Looking at the parking lot. The parked cars. Store windows. Rainwater. Anything. Halfway through another enhancement cycle, something caught my eye. A pair of headlights. A black SUV entered the parking lot less than 40 seconds after Finn ran. It stopped beside him. The driver never got out immediately. Instead, the vehicle waited. Almost as if whoever was inside already knew exactly where Finn would appear. I slowed the footage. Frame by frame. The driver's door finally opened. A man stepped out. His face wasn't visible. But his posture. The way he walked. The expensive leather shoes. Something felt painfully familiar. I increased the resolution. Recovered more missing pixels. Sharpened the reflection on the truck beside them. The image stabilized. I froze. No. Marcus looked up from across the lab. What is it? I didn't answer. I enlarged the reflection again. The man's face appeared for barely a fraction of a second. Just enough. Charlie Roberts. My father. Marcus walked over quietly. He didn't say anything until he saw the monitor. Then. Damn. Charlie wasn't trying to stop Finn. He wasn't checking on the victim. He walked straight to his son. Opened the SUV. Pulled out another jacket. Finn removed the one he had been wearing during the assault. Charlie stuffed it into a black trash bag. Then handed Finn a clean sweatshirt. My stomach turned. He knew. Marcus nodded slowly. He wasn't protecting his son after the fact. He came prepared. Neither of us spoke for several seconds. Because there was only one explanation. Charlie hadn't arrived by coincidence. Someone had called him immediately after the assault. And instead of calling an ambulance, he came to destroy evidence. Natalia Brown requested an emergency meeting that afternoon. When I entered the conference room, 2 detectives were already waiting. Along with Natalia. She stood as I walked in. Ms. Roberts. Thank you for coming. She wasted no time. The victim regained consciousness this morning. That alone changed everything. He gave a statement. I remained silent. Natalia opened a folder. He confirmed he asked your brother not to drive because he was visibly intoxicated. One detective continued. When he took the truck keys, your brother attacked him. Natalia slid several photographs across the table. The victim suffered a fractured orbital bone, 3 broken ribs, a ruptured spleen, and permanent damage to his left eye. The room felt smaller. Not because of the photographs. Because I suddenly understood why Charlie had panicked. This wasn't a bar fight. This was a life-changing assault. Natalia looked directly at me. Your reconstruction recovered something we initially missed. I nodded. My father. She wasn't surprised. We noticed. I believe he attempted to conceal physical evidence. Natalia closed the folder. So do we. That evening, Marcus called me into the server room. We've got a problem. He pointed toward one of the security monitors. Someone tried accessing your evidence archive. I frowned. Internal? He nodded. Using an employee account. My heartbeat accelerated. Did they get anything? No. The authentication system blocked the download. Who was it? Marcus handed me a printed report. The login belonged to Kevin Morris, a junior systems technician. I barely knew him. He says someone offered him $50,000 for one copy. I looked at Marcus. He refused. He accepted. My stomach dropped. Marcus continued. But he was too late. The system flagged the request before anything left the server. So someone inside knew exactly where the files were. Marcus nodded. They're getting desperate. I stared at the report. Charlie hadn't stopped after leaving my apartment. He had simply changed tactics. When manipulation failed, he tried money. When money failed, I had no doubt he'd try something else. Marcus leaned against the server rack. I've seen people panic before trials. This feels different. It is. Why? He looked at me for several long seconds. Then quietly answered. Because your father isn't acting like a man trying to save his son. He's acting like a man who's terrified of something else appearing on that video. I felt a chill run through my body. I had reviewed those recordings dozens of times. I thought I had seen everything. But if Marcus was right, the most dangerous evidence still hadn't been found. Marcus was right. There was something else on that recording. I found it by accident. Not while looking at Finn. Not while looking at Charlie. I was watching the reflection on the passenger side window of a parked SUV. Rain distorted almost everything. But when I synchronized the footage from 2 different cameras, the reflection became clear enough to reconstruct. Another person had entered the parking lot. A woman. She had been walking toward the restaurant entrance when Finn attacked the victim. She pulled out her phone. Not to record. To call 911. Before she could finish, Charlie reached her. The cameras didn't capture audio. They didn't need to. His body language said everything. He stepped directly into her path. Pointed aggressively toward her phone. Then toward Finn. The woman hesitated. Charlie took another step. She backed away. A few seconds later, she lowered the phone. Marcus watched beside me. He stopped her. I nodded slowly. He delayed the emergency call. Natalia Brown arrived less than an hour later. I replayed the synchronized footage without saying a word. When it ended, she remained perfectly still. Finally, she closed her notebook. This changes everything. One detective looked at Charlie's frozen image on the monitor. He wasn't just helping his son escape. Natalia finished the sentence. He interfered with emergency assistance. Silence filled the lab. She turned toward me. Ms. Roberts. I'll need a certified forensic report on every enhancement you performed. I'll have it tonight. And one more thing. She looked directly into my eyes. From this moment forward, assume your father is under active criminal investigation. The news spread faster than I expected. By that evening, Finn had already hired an attorney. Charlie's lawyer began calling everyone remotely connected to the investigation. Witnesses, police officers, private consultants, anyone he believed might weaken the case. Then, my phone rang. Charlie. I almost ignored it. Instead, I answered. What? His voice sounded completely different. Lower. Careful. Almost polite. We need to meet. We already did. This is serious. It always was. Please. That single word caught me off guard. Charlie Roberts had never said, please, to me in his life. Against my better judgment, I agreed. We met at a quiet coffee shop halfway between Uptown and South End. He was already waiting. No expensive suit. No confident smile. Just a tired man staring into a cup of untouched coffee. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then he slid an envelope across the table. I didn't touch it. What's this? Open it. Inside. A cashier's check. $200,000. I looked back at him. You think I'm for sale? It's not a bribe. What is it? A fresh start. I almost laughed. You threw me out with 2 garbage bags. And now you're offering me money because you need something. His shoulders dropped. I made mistakes. You made choices. I lost my temper. You hit your daughter. I can fix this. No. I pushed the envelope back toward him. You can't. His fingers tightened around the edge of the table. I'll transfer the house into your name. I blinked. For a moment, I wasn't sure I'd heard him correctly. What? The house. You always wanted security. I'll sign everything over. 3 days earlier, that house had supposedly been worth more than I was. Now, he was willing to give it away. Not because he loved me. Because he was terrified. I don't want your house. I'll divide everything equally. You already made your choice years ago. I'll rewrite my will. I don't care. His breathing became uneven. What do you want? There it was. The question he had never asked before. Not when I was 12. Not when I was 20. Not when he slapped me. What do you actually want? I answered without hesitation. I want you to stop asking me to protect people who never protected me. For the first time, Charlie looked genuinely speechless. Across town. The Roberts, no. The Roberts family was beginning to crack. Finn wasn't worried about me anymore. He was worried about prison. According to investigators, he had started blaming everyone else. The victim. The bartender. The witnesses. Then, his own father. One detective later told Natalia that Finn's statement changed 3 different times in a single interview. Each version contradicted the last. Pressure was doing what accountability never had. It was turning the golden child against the man who had spent his entire life shielding him. Charlie had created a son who believed consequences were always someone else's responsibility. Now, that son had chosen Charlie. Just after sunrise the following morning, Natalia called me herself. They're executing the warrant. What warrant? Your father's house. My pulse quickened. They found probable cause for obstruction and evidence tampering. I closed my eyes. Somewhere across Charlotte, police vehicles were already pulling into the same driveway where Charlie had thrown my belongings into the street. This time, they weren't coming to remove his daughter. They were coming to search his home. By noon, the search warrant had already produced more than anyone expected. Natalia called me after leaving the Roberts house. They found the jacket. The original one? Still inside the trash bag. I closed my eyes. Charlie hadn't even managed to destroy it. He had only hidden it. And there's more. Her voice remained calm. Your father never deleted his messages. What messages? He texted Finn while driving to the parking lot. My heartbeat quickened. Natalia read directly from the forensic report. Don't talk to anyone. Another message. Take off the jacket. Another. I'll handle everything. Every text carried a timestamp. Every timestamp matched the surveillance footage. Charlie hadn't just protected his son. He had coordinated the cover-up in real time. The local news broke the story that evening. Not names. Not yet. Just enough details to ignite public attention. Prominent Charlotte businessmen investigated for interfering with violent assault case. The report lasted less than 3 minutes. It was enough. Charlie's phone didn't stop ringing. Business partners. Neighbors. Friends. People who had admired him for years. Now, nobody wanted to be associated with him. The reputation he had spent decades building was collapsing in a single week. Not because of gossip. Because of evidence. Diane called me 7 times. I answered on the 8th. She was crying before I said hello. Millie. You have to help us. I already helped this family for 30 years. This is different. No. It isn't. Your father could go to prison. So could Finn. They're your family. I looked out the office window toward the Charlotte skyline. Then quietly answered. They remembered I was family exactly 3 days after throwing me away. Silence. When Diane spoke again, her voice was barely audible. I never wanted things to become like this. I finally said what I had carried since childhood. You didn't stop them. I was afraid. You were comfortable. No. Mom. You watched him choose Finn every single time. You watched him slap me. You watched him throw me into the street. And you stood there. She started sobbing. 4 years. That sound would have broken my heart. Now. It only confirmed something. Regret and accountability are not the same thing. She regretted the consequences. Not the choices. The next visitor surprised me. Finn. He waited outside Sentinel's lobby wearing sunglasses and a baseball cap. As if hiding his face could erase what he'd done. When I walked toward my car, he stepped in front of me. We need to talk. No. It'll only take a minute. I've already given you 30 years. He removed the sunglasses. His confidence was gone. Dark circles surrounded his eyes. He looked older. Smaller. Millie. I screwed up. You almost killed a man. I wasn't thinking. You never do. He swallowed. I've already lost everything. I looked at him carefully. No. You've just started losing. His shoulders slumped. Dad says you're the only one who can fix this. There it was again. Not. I'm sorry. Not. I was wrong. Only. Fix it. Exactly as our family had always worked. Finn made the mess. Millie cleaned it up. I shook my head. Not anymore. He stepped closer. We're blood. I almost smiled. You only remember that when you need something. He lowered his voice. If Dad goes down, he'll survive. If I go down, you'll finally face consequences. His expression hardened. So that's what this is? Revenge? I answered honestly. No. This is the first time I've refused to rescue you. There is a difference. He stared at me, searching for guilt. Finding none. Then he whispered something that almost made me laugh. You've changed. No. I finally stopped. That afternoon, Natalia invited me to review the final charging documents before my forensic testimony. She closed the conference room door. Laid out like this. The case felt overwhelming. Aggravated assault. Tampering with evidence. Obstruction of justice. Witness intimidation. Conspiracy after the commission of a felony. Each charge supported by surveillance footage. Phone records. Forensic analysis. Witness statements. And Charlie's own text messages. Natalia tapped the folder. Your work connected all of it. I remained quiet. She watched me carefully. Are you worried about testifying? No. About seeing your father in court? I thought for a moment. Then answered truthfully. I'm worried he'll still believe he's the victim. Natalia gave a small nod. People like him usually do. The following morning, Marcus appeared beside my desk carrying 2 coffees. He handed me one. You'll need it. Long day? He looked toward the reception area. You've got another visitor. I frowned. Who? Marcus didn't answer immediately. Instead, he quietly said, I've never seen him look like this before. I walked toward the lobby. Charlie Roberts was sitting completely alone. No expensive watch. No tailored jacket. No lawyer. No confidence. His hands trembled slightly as he stared at the floor. When he heard my footsteps, he slowly stood. For the first time in my entire life, my father looked like a man who understood he had lost. He looked at me. His voice cracked. Millie. I don't know how to fix this anymore. And for the first time, he wasn't asking for control. He was begging. Charlie stood in Sentinel's lobby for several seconds before saying another word. I never imagined we'd end up here. Neither had I. But unlike him, I knew exactly how we'd gotten there. One choice at a time. One excuse at a time. One favorite child at a time. I motioned toward a small conference room. We have 5 minutes. He nodded. Inside, he remained standing. Almost as if sitting would make him look weaker. I've spoken to my attorney. I figured. He says the prosecution's case is built around your forensic report. It isn't. He frowned. What do you mean? It's built around what you and Finn chose to do. Silence. For a long moment. He simply stared at me. Then his shoulders dropped. I failed you. Those 3 words should have meant something. 10 years earlier. They probably would have. Now. They felt painfully incomplete. You failed me when I was 8. When Finn broke my science project and you grounded me for complaining. You failed me when I was 16. When you sold my car to pay his debts. You failed me when I graduated college. When you skipped my ceremony because Finn had a golf tournament. His eyes slowly closed. You failed me at 24. When you told everyone my promotion only happened because of diversity hiring. I took one slow breath. And 3 days ago. You hit me. You threw me out. And somehow. You still expected me to save him. Charlie rubbed both hands across his face. I thought I was protecting my family. No. You were protecting one person. He looked down. I always believed Finn needed me more. And I believed if I kept proving myself, you'd eventually love me the same way. A painful silence settled between us. Finally. Charlie whispered. I did love you. I met his eyes. No. You loved the version of me that never disagreed with you. He couldn't answer. Because deep down, he knew I was right. Before leaving, he made one final request. When you're on the stand, tell the truth. I will. You don't have to volunteer everything. I won't hide anything either. If they ask whether I tried to destroy evidence, I'll answer. If they ask whether I intimidated that witness, I'll answer. If they ask whether I hit you. His breathing stopped. I finished the sentence for him. I'll answer. He closed his eyes. For a second. He looked every bit his 58 years. Older than I'd ever seen him. I deserve that. Those words surprised me. Not because they erased anything. Because they were the first honest sentence I'd heard from my father in years. The courthouse in Mecklenburg County was already crowded when I arrived. Reporters lined the front steps. Cameras pointed toward every entrance. Neither Charlie nor Finn looked at them. They kept their heads down. Natalia Brown greeted me near the courtroom doors. You ready? I've been ready since the day I finished the reconstruction. She smiled faintly. I thought you'd say that. Inside. The courtroom felt strangely quiet. The jury watched every movement. Charlie's attorney argued that the surveillance footage had been enhanced too heavily to be considered reliable. Natalia expected that. She called me first. I walked to the witness stand. Raised my right hand. Swore to tell the truth. Then sat down. The defense attorney approached immediately. Ms. Roberts. You're the defendant's daughter, correct? Yes. And the brother of the primary defendant is also your brother? Yes. So you have a personal interest in this outcome. I have a personal history. My professional work follows forensic standards regardless of who appears in the recording. He smiled. You expect this jury to believe emotion played no role? I expect them to review my methodology. Natalia projected my forensic report onto the courtroom screen. Every enhancement. Every timestamp. Every reconstruction log. Every software verification. Every integrity check. Nothing hidden. Nothing skipped. The defense attorney changed tactics. Could you have removed frames? No. Could you have altered facial features? No. Could you have edited the sequence? No. Why not? Because every action leaves a forensic record. I explained the chain of custody. Server authentication. Hash verification. Metadata preservation. Independent validation. one step after another. By the time I finished, the jury wasn't looking at me anymore. They were looking at Charlie. Then Natalia stood. Your Honor. The prosecution requests permission to display Exhibit 37. The courtroom lights dimmed. The restored footage appeared on the large screen. No dramatic music. No narration. Only reality. Finn striking the victim. Again. 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 The victim collapsing. Charlie arriving. Removing the jacket. Handing Finn clean clothes. Blocking the witness. Taking the evidence. Driving away. No one in the courtroom spoke. Even Charlie's attorney stopped writing. Because there was nothing left to explain. Nothing left to reinterpret. Nothing left to manipulate. For the first time in his life, Charlie Roberts couldn't argue with the truth. He could only watch it play back. Frame by frame. Exactly as it happened. The verdict didn't take long. The jury returned just before noon the following day. No one smiled. No one whispered. The courtroom was so quiet. I could hear the clerk turning pages. Charlie Roberts stared straight ahead. Finn couldn't stop moving his leg. For the first time in his life, there was no father who could fix this. The foreperson stood. We, the jury, find the defendant, Finn Roberts, guilty. One count after another. Aggravated assault. Leaving the scene. Every charge. Then came Charlie. Guilty. Obstruction of justice. Evidence tampering. Witness intimidation. Conspiracy after the commission of a felony. Each word landed heavier than the last. Charlie closed his eyes. Finn buried his face in his hands. Neither of them cried. They simply looked like men who had finally discovered something money, influence, and family loyalty could never erase. Consequences. Before sentencing, the judge allowed the victim to speak. He walked slowly to the podium. His left eye still carried permanent damage. Several ribs had healed crooked. He looked toward Finn first. Then Charlie. You know what hurts the most? Neither man answered. It wasn't the punches. It wasn't the surgery. It wasn't months away from work. He paused. It was realizing that after I collapsed. You never tried to save me. He turned toward Charlie. You weren't protecting your son. You were protecting yourself. Silence filled the courtroom. I would have survived either way. But if you'd called an ambulance instead of hiding evidence, my wife would have spent 3 fewer hours believing I was dead. There wasn't a single sound inside the courtroom. Not even from the reporters. Because everyone understood. Those words carried more weight than any prison sentence. Several weeks later, sentencing day arrived. Finn received years in state prison. The judge cited his continued violence after the victim had already fallen, his attempt to flee, and his complete lack of accountability during the investigation. Charlie also received a prison sentence. Shorter than Finn's. Long enough to destroy the reputation he had spent decades protecting. The judge said something I still remember. Mr. Roberts. Parents are expected to teach accountability. You taught concealment. You didn't create this crime. But you ensured it became much worse. Charlie lowered his head. He never looked back up. Diane didn't attend the sentencing. According to one of our relatives, she had quietly moved into a small condominium across town. Not because anyone forced her to leave. Because the house had become unbearable. Every room reminded her of a different choice she hadn't made. Every hallway reminded her of the daughter she hadn't defended. Months later, She sent me a handwritten letter. No excuses. No requests. Just one sentence. I should have stood beside you that day. It was the most honest thing she'd ever written. I never replied. Some apologies arrived too late. Marcus retired for good that summer. On his final afternoon at Sentinel, he stopped by my office carrying a small cardboard box. I found something. Inside was the employee badge I'd received on my first day. I laughed. I thought I'd lost this. You did. He smiled. I kept it because I had a feeling you'd need a reminder someday. Reminder of what? He pointed toward the badge. The woman who walked through those doors earned everything herself. No family connections. No shortcuts. No favors. Don't ever let anyone convince you otherwise. I still keep that badge in my desk drawer. A few months later, I signed the paperwork for my first home. Not my parents' house. Not an inheritance. Not a gift. Mine. Every payment came from years of honest work. As I unlocked the front door for the first time, I remembered standing on another porch months earlier. 2 black garbage bags at my feet. My father smiling while telling me not to come back. I smiled too. Not because I had one. Because I no longer needed to prove anything. People still ask if I ever forgave Charlie. The answer surprises them. Yes. Eventually. I did. Not because he earned it. Not because he apologized enough. Not because prison changed him. I forgave him because carrying that anger would have chained me to the worst day of my life forever. Forgiveness gave me peace. Trust was different. I never visited him. I never rebuilt the relationship. Some doors should remain closed. A year after the trial, I received one final letter. This time, from Charlie. There were no legal documents inside. No requests. No excuses. Just a single page written in shaky handwriting. It said, "The day I slapped you, I thought I was throwing the wrong child out of my house. I know now. I threw the only child who ever had integrity out of my life." I folded the letter. Placed it back into the envelope. Then locked it away. Not because I wanted to remember it. Because I no longer needed it. The truth had already been written long before Charlie ever picked up a pen. The day he threw 2 garbage bags onto the porch. He thought he was getting rid of the daughter who embarrassed him. What he was really throwing away was the only person who could have saved his family from itself.